right. So back in May, about 5 months ago, we interviewed, through the magic of the internet, we interviewed John Deverall, all the way from New Zealand. And he told us about his experience here as a tourist in February of this year. He came to Krakow. One night he dropped into a place called the VIP Club, and almost 20,000 zlotys later, he walked out. I realized fairly quickly after leaving the club that something was seriously wrong with the credit card situation. And of course, he'd been defrauded. He strongly believes he was somehow drugged. And, well, there's a serious crimes going on at the VIP Club. He alerted the police. The prosecutor got a lawyer, and we're going to find out what this current situation is, because, in fact, he is here with us in the studio today. He's come all the way back to Krakow to follow up on the case, and he's here to give us an update on the current status. John, welcome back to the KrakCast.
Thank you, John.
You're our first two-time guest. Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice one. I'm joined, as usual, by Josh, and Dr. Mike is here as well.
Hello.
So, John, let's not go over the details of exactly what happened. We've already talked about that. And by the way, for your listeners, we'll link to that original interview in the show notes for this episode. You're back in Krakow to follow up on the case. Tell us what the current status is. What's changed? What's improved? Any prospects for justice? What's going on?
Yes, well, when we started, I put up this website, and we hoped to find members to join our group. So
sorry to interrupt you. The website, polishclubscams.org, right?
Yes.
polishclubscams.org.
Clubscams.org.
That's a website where people can go to contact you if they had a similar experience to yours in Poland, also defrauded in a strip club. They can contact you for support, help, and I understand you are acting as a group somehow legally to get justice for everybody. Is that right?
Yes. So after my experience in the club, I wanted to do something so that this couldn't continue to happen. So I created this website, polishclubscams.org, and started promoting it on some local forums where people end up when they Google, "I've been scammed in a club in Poland, what do I do?"
There's probably a Google autocomplete for that, you know?
Yeah.
Number 3 search.
Yeah, so I think there probably is. And people have started finding the site. So we're now tracking about just over $100,000 US in stolen funds.
$100,000. If you can tell us roughly how many people have contacted you with a story similar to your own.
That was 28 people.
And obviously, we don't expect you to give us the details of anyone in particular, but tell us about kind of what is the typical person who contacts you like? I mean, they have a similar to yourself, here on as a tourist, similar age group, similar situation, similar story to tell, or do you get all kinds of stories?
They're mostly similar stories. They're always tourists. Everybody that has been scammed is a tourist. And often they come from European countries. I think it's quite easy for people in Europe to come to Krakow because it's also in Europe. There are also people from as far away as Uruguay. There's a few people from Canada. I'm from New Zealand, obviously.
Yeah. And what's the largest single amount that anyone... that, to your knowledge, anyone has lost in one of the Krakow strip clubs?
£36,000 registered through my site.
£36,000.
Yeah, 36.
That's almost 200,000 zlotys. Yeah, is my math right there? Times 5. Yeah, let's call it just under 200,000. That is mind-boggling. £36,000. Okay. Wow. All right. So.
There are amounts higher after doing some research and looking through the amounts that have been turned up and the cases that have been submitted to the Polish court. It's pretty standard to lose that kind of money. The big numbers are starting at around that, going up to £60,000.
So in the 7 months or 8 months that have passed since this happened and you informed the authorities here, what progress has been made towards holding VIP accountable?
Well, the Polish justice system seems fairly slow.
You're being diplomatic.
Yes, I think I am being diplomatic. It is fairly slow. we have a power of attorney form, and we need people to fill out that form because otherwise we cannot act for them. We have a lawyer, and he is well funded, and he is in the process of getting all of these power of attorney forms together.
So you're pursuing a civil case then?
No, it's a criminal case. We felt that a criminal case was important.
And you're pursuing this privately, because typically the prosecutor would be the prosecuting attorney in a criminal case. So you're pursuing this, which by the way, Polish law allows for private individuals to be the prosecuting attorney.
And this is like a class
in a criminal
action,
case.
effectively, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a class action criminal case. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, but it's not yet underway, so it's not yet formally filed even?
No, there's a lot of paperwork just to collect all of the evidence from all of the victims. And not everybody that stumbles into these clubs is great at paperwork. And so there's a little bit of chasing up individuals. Can you please... There's a lot of chasing up individuals. Can you please fill out this form?
Do you find that people are maybe reluctant because they kind of want to put this particular chapter of their lives to sleep, and kind of, reluctant to, publicize it, maybe pressure from a significant other that says, I don't want you out there talking about how you were in a strip club, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a factor?
I don't think so, because they can be anonymous.
I see. Okay. All right. So, why, in your opinion, why are the public prosecutor and the police so disinterested in really pursuing cases like yours? Because we've heard other similar cases also interviewed here on the KrakCast, and they say that it's basically useless telling the prosecutor about things like this. Again, in your opinion, why is that?
Well, they've been asked, one of the questions that they've been asked about the cases that they do have on file at the moment, and they have hundreds and hundreds of cases on file, is, have you looked into the company behind these cases? And they're on record as coming back and saying, we didn't see that as relevant to the investigation. And that's a curious answer, because we know that there's really one company behind all of these cases. There's this guy driving a gold Lamborghini around town.
Subtle, yeah.
He's a very religious man.
Apparently, yes, yeah. I would thank God too if I was that rich.
Yes, you'd want to, wouldn't you?
Let's say in God we trust on dollar bills.
Yeah, this is true. But the prosecutor just, can't be bothered? It's too complicated to prove, too lazy?
I think that somebody must be getting paid off to have a response like that and know that there is one company that is perpetuating all of this fraud and keeping it going. They're the former Kokomo chain. It's exactly the same.
Sounds kind of conspiratorial there, John.
No, they are the same people as the people that ran the Kokomo chain.
No, I mean, it sounds conspiratorial to say the prosecutor's getting paid to look the other way on these cases.
It does, but what is the explanation?
Laziness.
Could be
what about the fact, and I think we talked about this a little bit before in our first interview, what about the fact that the prosecutor says, look, you're a tourist, you're just passing through, it's your own fault, you wanted to see some naked girls, things went bad, oh well, sorry. And if it were Polish people, if it were local Polish people being ripped off like this, things would be very different. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It could be that. It could be just that we're foreigners and once we leave, they feel like we're not important anymore.
There is, of course, the issue that for prosecutors in any kind of jurisdiction where a case is instigated by a prosecutor, that is the existing legal framework, that a prosecutor won't instigate a case unless they have a reasonable assurance that there is a chance of bringing a successful case, that it's winnable.
Yeah, they don't want to ruin their stats.
And
basically,
in something like this, where maybe it's just very, very hard to kind of isolate, analyse, pin down clear evidence that a crime has taken place. I mean, there's obviously a lot of wiggle room here. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate slightly, you understand, but, a prosecutor is not going to be determined to try and bring a case if there is no reasonable chance that it will be successful.
Point, and I agree with that. Yeah, any prosecutor is going to do that, but I think in particular the Polish prosecutor only pursues slam dunk cases, sure things. And if it's less than a sure thing, maybe even far from a sure thing, like in a case like we're talking about now, they're just not interested.
Yeah, that might well be the case.
I'm pretty sure that's the case with prosecutors in a lot of countries. But going back to the previous thing you mentioned about how this seems to be targeting mainly tourists, I think that's actually scary that the local city will be so short-sighted. This is a city that lives off of tourism. If Krakow becomes known as a sleazy place where you're going to get ripped off, then even, people coming to visit, for historical reasons or just to have a good time, but not necessarily in a strip club, might be a little turned off. It's like, it's like another Amsterdam or Prague. Though, as you mentioned when we were talking off the air, Amsterdam and Prague aren't that bad anymore. Not like here.
No, this certainly when I've been in Amsterdam, and I've been a number of times, I don't get the same kinds of solicitations that I do when I'm walking across Main Square in
Krakow.
Krakow.
City famous for its red light district is less intrusive in your personal space than Krakow, the city of the Pope. That's just mind-boggling.
He was naked underneath all that.
Thanks, Mike. He wasn't back to thanks. I don't know where that. All right, fine. John, the prosecutor's not interested, police not interested. The wheels turn very slowly. But what about the banks? Banks is another player in this story that it's also confusing because you would think that as a private business that they'd be a little more nimble, a little more responsive to customers, that meaning you, and a little more likely to treat this seriously when it's the circumstances are obvious. It's a strip club. There's some ridiculous amount of money involved. There's legal action being taken against the strip clubs. They should have all the proof they need to kind of cut off the payment or reverse it or whatever they do. What kind of response have you got from your bank in New Zealand about this?
Well, there is a chargeback process that Visa has in place. And Visa's an American-based global company, and all of the banks...
Don't blame us. No, I'm joking.
No offense intended. All of the banks have the ability to lodge a chargeback request with Visa, and Visa will investigate. And the way they investigate is that they send a letter to the club, and they say, this customer has a transaction dispute with you, and the club waits for that transaction dispute, which always arrives, and then they send a response back to Visa with still screenshots of the customer at the club entering their PIN number.
Yeah, documentation of some kind, yeah.
Yeah, documentation of some kind. Just to say these were consensual transactions. The customer knew what they were doing. They were fully informed, and we're a legitimate business. And
do you know in your case what kind of documentation was supplied, if
yes,
any?
I have the documentation.
Okay.
I've been working with my bank reasonably closely. They were difficult to work with until we went to the media. They don't like negative publicity, it turns out.
Good. Find their pain point and press on it. Yes.
Yes. And so once we were talking media, then we met together in person, and they showed me the documentation that we had, and I could tell that they understood that I was genuine in my complaint. But they are in a bind trying to get through the Visa chargeback process. Otherwise, the bank is out of pocket. And there doesn't appear to be a business process within the Visa system to say, I've been drugged with GHB and ripped off in a strip club. They don't have that checkbox.
Yeah, but wait. What was the documentation that satisfied Visa that the transaction, as you say, was consensual and thus legitimate and, causing the money to be transferred to the strip club? But what evidence, documentation was there that showed that it was a legitimate transaction as far as VIP is concerned?
There were photos of me entering my PIN number.
Photos?
Photos, yeah. The club has everybody on video. Everybody that goes there, they keep the videos.
Okay, but that photo, does it show, there's a context here. Right?
Yeah, and there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
In addition, they provided about 4 or 5 pages of drinks orders and erotic services and things which I never ever purchased or dreamt to purchase.
4 or 5 pages of drinks. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
If you had that many drinks, I'm pretty sure nothing would be consensual at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The erotic purchases. I'm very. No. I won't go there.
No, I can't even remember what that form said. I knew it was garbage and I didn't read it. So, but I do have the documentation.
John, let me just ask on the subject of the what do you call it? The terminal, the credit card terminal. We had another guest that talked about a similar experience to yours, and he said that a misleading amount had been, or a wrong amount had been entered in the terminal. And when he asked about it, he was given some excuse about, oh, don't worry about that we'll take care of it later. So, something to take his mind or distract him from it. Do you recall when you looked at the terminal, did it say, thousands and thousands of zlotys, or what did you see when you gave your PIN number?
Yeah, when I gave my PIN number, I could see that the figure on the screen was 500. And after that, it had NZD. And so I asked about that. I said, is this zloty?
No, it's New Zealand dollars.
Is this New Zealand dollars? And they said, oh, it shows the currency of your local country. It's still zloty. Now, I'm obviously naive in thinking that they would tell me the truth. They're not telling the truth at all. They're just doing exactly what your last guest said, making up stories about how the terminals work.
Mm-hmm. So they're suggesting that this is 500 zlotys, when in fact it was 500 New Zealand dollars.
Yes.
Which is roughly 2.5 times.
Yes.
500, something like that.
Yeah.
But as far as VIP is concerned, they're going to say that you knew very well what NZD, I said it in Polish. NZD means, and so this is your problem. That's going to be the reply, right?
Yeah, that is their reply, exactly.
That they were perfectly straightforward and honest with you when it came to the information on the terminal, and it becomes your word versus their word.
Yes, that's right. There is an interesting detail in that they told me that all of my transactions were declined, and they pointed to a black
Sorry, who's they? Who's they told?
The club.
VIP told you your transactions were declined.
Yeah, and they always tell victims this. They say, oh, sorry, that transaction was declined.
We have to do it again.
We have to do it again.
And again.
And again. And until
did you get a receipt saying that it had been declined?
Yes. I do have receipts saying that they were declined. Now, the receipts that were sent to my bank do not say that the transactions were declined. So here we have a difference. And it's a very important and interesting difference. So I haven't had a chance to look into this deeper because I only received the receipts this afternoon. But it will be interesting to see where this ends up.
Is it possible that they just have kind of, ready-made, pre-printed pieces of paper that say transaction declined, and they just hand those out to say that, oh, whoops, didn't go through, we have to do it again?
I think it is. I think that
seems like a simple explanation.
Just switching the receipt on their customers. I think that's a perfectly reasonable explanation as to why people believe things are being declined when they're not.
Because it looks legit, right? It's printed on the paper, and et cetera, et cetera.
Totally legitimate.
Let's back up to the part about being drugged. Now, I believe in our first interview, you said that you believe that you were somehow drugged with something.
I think it's easily possible. I was very sick and I hadn't drunk much.
Do you remember kind of like, it's like room spinning around kind of sick, or, you're just not yourself? I mean,
it was sort of a dream-like state. I remember feeling, it's not an experience I've had before. I haven't felt that sick before later either.
I think our previous guest, Alex from the Ukraine, said the same thing, that he'd never had this feeling, never been that ill before after just a couple of drinks, never felt like that before. And yes, but you can't prove conclusively that somebody spiked your drink or anything like that, but that's your suspicion, yes?
Yeah, it is. We also know from police raids that GHB has been found.
GHB, what is that?
It's a date rape drug.
Ah.
It has been found in the drinks and the bloodstreams of customers of the same company in other clubs.
You've been here in Krakow for a couple of days, right? And I imagine you've passed through the main square at some point. I'm sure you've seen the touts on the street inviting people to come to various strip clubs. Given your experience, your very difficult experience, what goes through your mind when you see people on the street, recruiting maybe naive tourists to go into these clubs?
If I do see them recruiting, and I can see them with a couple of drunk British men trailing them, I tend to intervene. I just say, there's a 90% chance you're going to get drugged and robbed.
So you're making a scene on the street then, huh?
Yeah, just maybe don't go in there.
Okay. Wow, stepping in. Mm-hmm. I imagine you get kind of a nasty response from the club people. I can't imagine they take too kindly to you.
No, I don't think they do. They also have rules that they need to follow, such as wearing armbands and so on. And sometimes they don't, and I film them, and they see me filming them, and they really don't like it. I feel a little bit sorry for the woman on the street because they're just employees of a company.
No, it's interesting that you say that you feel sorry for them because. And this is something that we discussed in our interview with Alex as well, and Dave, who's not here today, said the same thing. Is it possible that they're in on it? I mean, how could they not be? How could they not know what really goes on inside the club? Being so closely involved with every aspect of it, bringing people to the door, probably inside the door, all the way to the bar. Isn't it a bridge too far to kind of believe that they don't know what's going on?
Yeah, I think it could be. It's hard to know for sure, but when you do get talking to a few of them, they do say and admit that, you really shouldn't go inside.
Harsh. All right, so going forward, what do you hope to get done during your visit to Krakow now in terms of, getting the ball rolling? And what kind of solution do you see for the yourself and the group of people you're kind of representing?
Well, initially, I'm here to visit friends that I met last time. That's one good reason for me.
So there was a good side.
There's a good side to this.
Good results to your trip, no matter how horrible it was in the VIP club. Okay.
Yes, certainly. And catch up with the lawyer just in person, just to find out where the case is at.
Yeah.
Get copies of documents that it's such as the receipts that it's just nice to have in my hand in person.
It's hard to do a lot of things from the other side of the world, huh?
Yeah, it can be. And so I'm looking at putting affairs in place in Poland so that I can act more easily from New Zealand.
Do you expect to have your day in court one day here?
Yes. In fact, I will be here for it. I expect it will be later this month.
Later this month?
Later this month.
What kind of hearing do you expect it to be? What is it?
The case that's going to court this month is just my personal case. And I think we'll lose.
That's the spirit.
We'll certainly lose.
Why do you think you're going to lose?
Because this is just because I made an official police report at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
It's just me going up against them, and the onus is on me and only me to prove that I was robbed. And that has never been successful across hundreds and hundreds of cases.
Yeah, not a good track record on that one, I have to say. Yeah.
No. So
you basically need an admission of guilt from the other side.
Yeah.
And even then, nothing is guaranteed, really. So
no.
Yeah.
So filing the case with the public prosecutor with all of the victims that have contacted me is a priority while I'm here, and making sure that is in process.
Uh-huh. And in this case or in the other case that you're pursuing kind of as a group, what are you asking for? What do you want? Just the money back, or money back in damages, or apologies, or punishment? Store credit.
Store credit.
What do you want?
In terms of the clubs and their management, I'd like to see them in prison. I think they certainly deserve to go to prison. What they're doing is fraud, and they need to be stopped. In terms of the banks, which is the other side of what we're doing, they need to create that checkbox that says, I've been drugged and robbed. It needs to be a very quick and speedy process to issue a chargeback, which they're perfectly capable of doing.
Sure.
Currently, we just don't meet the criteria.
Now, I understand that we're not the only major news outlet that have taken an interest in your situation. Is it right that you're talking with someone from one of the national broadcasters?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And what can we look forward to maybe one day as the result of that?
Well,
Or is it still under wraps, or what can you tell us?
I'm hoping that will be on TV sometime around January.
Okay, so not quite as big as the KrakCast, but
Wait. Maybe you
something.
could wear a KrakCast t-shirt.
yeah, KrakCast t-shirt, just something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, this is a subject. I mean, we've talked about it before. It's hard to believe that this doesn't get more coverage, more sensational coverage, given the subject matter. And it's just strange that more people aren't more upset about it. Like Mike said earlier, the city wants to protect its reputation. It's clearly a crime. The really dodgy characters involved. I mean, some of these guys the guy we're talking about, he drives this gold Lamborghini or whatever color it is. I mean, how much more comic book can you be than, the strip club king that drives a gold Lamborghini? I mean, you're just begging to be made fun of, right? Yeah. And so all the elements are there. And the result of all this is nothing. Case after case after case is reported to the prosecutor. Case after case after case is closed with so-called no evidence. Police are not interested. They just pass along whatever they have to the prosecutor. Don't work very hard to gather evidence, by the way, from what we can tell. And just everybody's happy to pass along to the next stage until finally they say, sorry, case closed, no evidence, and bye. And meanwhile, people like yourself have to go home, and home is often, as in your case, very, very far away. And, there's very little incentive for them to do anything. Whereas, as I said, if most of the victims were here, living here in the same city, and if maybe some of those people were politically connected or prominent in the business world or whatever, something would get done. I can't imagine this would be tolerated. And so there's just a lot of reasons why I just can't believe it doesn't get more coverage. Yeah. John, tell people listening, for anyone who's interested, and for anyone unfortunate enough to have a story similar to yours, a similar experience to yours, how they can get in touch with you.
Well, they can get in touch with me through our website, polishclubscams.org.
All one word, yeah? polishclubscams.org, yeah. And what can you find on the website now without, people who don't necessarily want to contact you, just want to see what they can find on the website? What will they find?
Well, there are the testimonials of previous victims. So if anybody's interested in finding out exactly what happens when you go to one of these clubs and gets ripped off, you can read about it on the website and make your own mind up about how it all goes down. There's also, I think most importantly, the steps that you need to follow if you've just been scammed to try and get your money back.
Well, give us the summarized version of what are the steps that people should follow.
Well, you need to contact your bank.
First thing, bank.
Bank, yeah. Contact the bank, let them know there's been an issue, and push for them to issue a chargeback, which is a reversal of the transactions. That's the first important thing to do.
Okay.
The second thing to do is to file a report with the Polish police. And that's not always easy to do. It's only really possible in Poland. And if people have already left Poland, then they can contact us and we will put them in a group complaint to the police. We will do that.
You say the first step is contacting the bank, and that makes sense, obviously. But at the same time, I'm wondering if you contact the bank, will they ask you if you have a police report?
No. Well, they will. They'll want you to send them information. But there are also allegations of card skimming in these clubs, and it's important that your cards are cancelled.
Oh, yeah, of course. Is there any kind of a time frame or a time period after which it's really impossible to do anything with the bank? I mean, how quickly do you have to act?
From what I've heard, the time frame is about 500 days. So if
500.
500, that, from what I've heard from companies that specialise in driving the chargeback process, because this kind of issue is such a problem that there are now businesses bringing up to help support people.
Wow.
In this it's a crazy industry.
Yeah.
There's an industry starting to form just out of trying to support people through the chargeback process.
Now, I was expecting you to say something like 12 hours, not 500 days.
500 days.
That seems to suggest the banks have a huge amount of flexibility on this issue.
They do.
That they simply refuse to use for some reason.
They're just not using, they just don't have that checkbox. They've got all the technology, everything they need. They're just not doing it.
Well, you heard it straight from John Deverall. Contact the bank, contact the police, or you can save yourself a lot of problems by simply not going to the VIP club or any strip club for that matter. Yeah.
Yes, that.
I mean, come on, people. You got the internet at home. What do you need the strip club for?
Or at least carry cash.
or cash. Yeah, exactly.
The last thing that people should do is they should register with the website.
Oh, yes, of course. PolishClubScams.org. Get more information there. And, get some support from people who've had this awful experience that John's described. Well, John,
you can fill out the power of attorney form. That's the other thing.
Power of attorney. There's all kinds of legal stuff. So you can get it on the desk of the attorney so it can sit there for 6 months and while they do whatever they do at the court. And it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Well, John, when you get to the end of this road, if there is an end, in fact, you can come back on the podcast, be our first 3-time guest. And we'll have a nice story arc from the beginning all the way to the end when hopefully there's a happy ending when the guy drives his Lamborghini to jail or something like that and you get $1 billion or whatever. And yeah, that'll be the day, huh? Well, John, thanks for joining us. Good luck in the case. Good luck back in New Zealand and keep us posted.
Thank you, John.